Meantime, the Prime Minister today, he was announcing a brand new health minister for the country. In fact, the person who ended up doing it was the current health minister, Greg Hunt.
In Anne Ruston, we have somebody who is immensely well prepared, both with her own personal history, but also her professional work, taking care of Australia's welfare budget and overseeing support for people. And so she's an enormously capable person.
Now, Anne Ruston is currently the senator who's in charge of social services. She's also the campaign spokesperson, so she's well and truly front and centre. It's almost like the Prime Minister thought these things through. But the media underestimated him and the Labor Party underestimated him. And I'll get to some of their stupid commentary in a few minutes' time. But the alternative opposition leader thinks he can just make stuff up about Anne Ruston, suggesting that if she's the health minister, then somehow Medicare will become like an American private system.
Now, Anne Ruston has made it very clear she wants to take the universal out of universal health care. Cuts to health care and cuts to Medicare.
Are these like their cuts that they found in the federal budget that really were a $3 billion movement of announcements from not announced to announced? What they're trying to hang all of this on are some comments that apparently she made about 7 years ago, suggesting the current way Medicare works is financially unsustainable. Now, I find this interesting because remember, Albo's allowed to change his mind. Albo's allowed to change his mind literally in the space of 15 minutes, let alone 15 months, let alone 7 years. Remember, this year he said that climate was more important to deal with than China. But then he changed his mind in one of his bailout interviews that he seems to be needing every couple of weeks. The reality, of course, is that there are no plans, nowhere. Fact check this one tomorrow. No plans at all for anything but record spending. In fact, the amount of money that is being spent currently on Medicare is more than any government at any time. More than Gillard, more than Rudd, more than Hawke and Keating. That's the truth. But the reporters, who are supposed to, of course, just be the stenographers for the great Anthony Albanese, and he is so desperate he's had to go to a lefty music festival at Byron Bay to find a friend. That's what he's doing tonight. But the people who are covering his campaign, they are not falling for the bait and switch. Because remember what I told you about in his budget in reply speech, where you just make the announcement but don't put any money on it. And then if you do put any money on it, you don't put any details on how you're going to do it. Remember his aged care policy? A nurse in every single aged care centre within a year. They'd be there for 24 hours a day. The only problem is there aren't enough nurses in the country and you don't take 1 year but multiple years to actually train them. It's a point being made by Jonathan Lee on the campaign bus today.
We have as a system from the opposition at the moment where they tell us what things are going to cost but not how we're going to get there. There's a lack of meat on the bone.
Because their whole plan was to Aussie Joe Biden this. There is no meat, there is no detail, and there is a bloke in charge who isn't up to it. And again, on boats, second time in a week he screwed this up. Oh, sure, it's only national security. Sure, it's only people's lives at stake here. Now, this idiot turned around and claimed he didn't hear the question he was asked, which was, do you support Operation Sovereign Borders and all three of its tranches, which is turnaround, offshore processing and temporary protection visas. I've told you about those before. It means that if somebody eventually gets here, if the place that they have come from ends up becoming a safe country, like places like Sri Lanka, then see you later, you go home.
Do you remain committed to Operation Sovereign Borders? And if so, do you support the retention of temporary protection visas?
Yes.
4 times he nodded, which would suggest that he can hear the question. It's a little bit like when Will Smith laughed at the Chris Rock joke and then he saw the reaction and then, of course, got angry. Well, here he is doing a version of slapping himself as if he was Will Smith slapping Chris Rock.
Earlier on, I heard half the question and didn't hear all of it. Labor's policy is to support Operation Sovereign Borders. We support offshore processing. We support resettlement in third countries. We don't support temporary protection visas.
All three are needed to support Operation Sovereign Borders. You can't pick and choose. It is not a buffet. It is a menu that is preset and all three are needed for it to work, mate. Once again, he's lying. Does he look like he can't hear the question he's nodding at?
Do you remain committed to Operation Sovereign Borders, and if so, do you support the retention of temporary protection visas?
Yes.
Now, of course, this bloke is all over the shop. There's a reason I call him Each Way Albo and have since the first day he became the opposition leader. Even the New Daily, which is paid for with union superannuation money, sees that the bloke is a flip-flopper. Because, of course, he said last week, we don't need offshore processing. So he's not even serious about two of the three options that you need.
We'll turn boats back. Turning boats back means that you don't need offshore detention.
OK, but of course, when we turn around and work out why he came to this position, where now he claims to, of course, be magically in favour of this particular policy, it's not where he's been. Now, remember, what Anne Rushton said 7 years ago is enough for the Medicare Mark II campaign. Well, in July 2013, Albanese told ABC Breakfast that asylum seekers who were not deemed to be genuine refugees would not be settled in Australia and would be repatriated to either their country of origin or a third country. That's what he said in 2013. So now he's arguing against himself when it comes to temporary protection visas. He also says he's going to turn back boats, but he's arguing with himself from 2015.
I'm of the view that I would just find it. I couldn't ask someone else to do something that I couldn't see myself doing. And if people were in a boat, including families and children, I myself couldn't turn that around. I would want to make sure that they were safe and secure. That was a position that I came to.
He is everywhere. Each way Albo. He's almost Kama Sutra-like on this one. That's how many positions that he's taken in all of it. So let's go through Albo being all at sea on boats. This is the reality. In 2007, he opposed Howard's boat policy. In 2007 to 2013, he defended the Rudd and Gillard boat policies, which, as you know, produced tens of thousands of people coming here and 1,000 people dying. And then at 5 minutes to midnight, when he was Deputy Prime Minister to Kevin Rudd, they pretended to come up with a Band-Aid fix. But then he opposed the Band-Aid fix in 2015. So in 2022, he's disagreeing with himself from 2015, 2013, 2007. He is clueless. That's why the PM can keep doing this bloke like a dinner every day of the campaign.
Anthony Albanese has had every position on border protection. He has supported everything he has opposed, and he's opposed everything that he has supported. Who is this guy? That's what Australians are asking. And when it comes to border protection, I'll tell you who knows who I am, the people smugglers.
But apparently all of this is just a mirage. According to The Guardian, this is all media hysteria, not him arguing against himself on his own policies, his own positions, while pushing lies about Medicare, because apparently what was said 7 years ago is absolutely the truth, unless, of course, it's Albo who said it. So before we get to our great panel, the questions that we always need to ask, because they're the ones he can't answer. No meat on the bone. There's no bone to put the meat on. The questions for this bloke: who will pay more tax? Why do you keep saying that climate is a bigger threat than China? Who pays for the 43% climate cut by 2030? Forget your 2050. 2030 comes before then. Who will be the defence minister? Will KK be on the borders or the budget? Who's really in charge? Mean Girls, the Greens, or the fake independents?